There we go. You're all live. Have a great meeting, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, welcome to the community. My name is Greg Fraser. I'm a stand-in for the chief today. She's off at the Chiefs of Ontario meeting in Toronto. And she's attending the Chiefs, the Ontario Leadership and Advocacy Strategy meeting. And it was running yesterday and today. And of course, she sends her regrets. Just before we get started, I have an announcement to make. As you know, it's always a marquee event for our young hockey players. Yeah, starting from March 10th to March 15th. Of course, we have the Little NHL tournament and in Markham, Ontario at the Civic Center. And of course, we have quite a bit of a large participation. We have 25 teams. And of course, it's always an exciting little tournament for our players. As you know, we've had players that have gone on to bigger things at the international and professional stage, and they've always started off in the Little NHL. So I congratulate all the teams that are going, and I hope they have a lot of fun. Also, the guest for that tournament will be Ted Nolan. Moving right along to the item number 3 on our meeting is the adoption of the agenda. And are there any new business items? Elena?
I want to see if we can add some in-camera items to the open session.
What item would you like to add?
I'm asking if we can do number 4 from the in-camera and add that to open. And number 9. Anything else? I'd say number 6. And number 6.
That is 4, 6, and 9.
Yes.
That includes the recommendation from the Six Nations Cannabis Commission for extending their MOU. Also, the recommendation from Social Services funding for the review of the 1965 Welfare Agreement, and also Trevor Bomberry's topic on the Navajo Nation visit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that would be determined by council. Yes, Helen?
Yeah, I want to thank Elena for bringing that up because I had listed a whole bunch of them last night that I thought should be taken out of in camera, but I'm glad somebody agreed with me. Thank you.
So is there further discussion from the councilors on that? Moved by Cynthia to make those items changed from the in-camera to the open. Seconded by Elena. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. So just to review, that will be adding towards the end of the open items number 4, recommendation from Six Nations Cannabis Commission on extending their MOU, recommendation from Social Services concerning a funding for the review of the 1965 Welfare Agreement, and number 9, Trevor Bomberry's presentation on the Navajo Nation visit. Is that correct? Good. So those will be added to the open at the end of the open session. So we're looking to the adoption of the agenda as it has been changed. Moved by Audrey, seconded by Elena. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. So the item number 4, delegation presentations. As I believe we have Mark Eby and Joe Murphy here from the County of Brant. And that's concerning the Darnley Culvert project presentation, right? If you could come to the front. As well as Mike Montour. Mike Montour is here as well. So
Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael Montour, Director of Public Works for Six Nations. We collaborate constantly with our neighbors, and these two my counterparts here are from the County of Brant. They're going to go through a project here, but they had requested to do a detour within the boundaries of Six Nations because of a culvert replacement they're doing just west of the territory here. And they'll get into it more, but yeah, happy to bring this here so that council's aware and the community is aware, and I'll turn it over to Mark and Joe. Yeah.
yes, sir, and welcome, to our meeting. So go ahead, just a short overview. And do you have a slide deck that you're going to present? Okay. Thank you. Mike is yours.
Good morning, and thank you for the invite this morning to attend your committee meeting so we can present this for you. My name is Mark Eby. I'm the Director of Infrastructure and Asset Management at the County of Brant. And with me is...
Yes, I'm Joe Murphy, Capital Project Manager with the County of Brant.
So as was mentioned by Michael, the Darnley Culvert Rehabilitation project, it's just immediately west of the Six Nations territory. And this is just would be included in our set of contract drawings. It just gives an overall presentation of where the culvert location is relative to the County of Brant and the Six Nations territory. It's on Old Greenfield Road. Next slide, please. And then from here, you can see the proposed detour route that we have. You can see the location of the Darnley Culvert on Old Greenfield Road, and then the roads within the Six Nations territory that we're asking for permission to use for the detour. So Third Line, Mohawk Road, and Sour Springs Road. Next slide.
So this is just a general overview of the construction. As you can see, what it is a CSP arch structure. That's a corrugated steel pipe arch, which goes under the road I think that's a tributary of Mount Pleasant Creek there. The ends of the structure, if we advance the slides, are being replaced due to deterioration. What's happening is the culvert, as you can see, is on a skew, and the ends, if you can advance the slide there. What's happening is the ends of the culvert are starting to collapse just because of an overhang. So what we're doing is we're cutting those ends off, putting new ends on, and then leaving the existing structure in the center. So. This is just a representation. This is a picture of Old Greenfield Road. The red line is the culvert crossing location. As you can see, we did consider temporary traffic signals to keep one lane open. But due to the narrowness of the road and the proximity of the two entrances on either side of the culvert, it would be very difficult to maintain any kind of traffic through this area. It would also, if we had to maintain traffic, would extend the project by another month to a month and a half.
Audrey, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Whereabouts is that located again? Is that on Fourth Line?
It's the extension of Third Line. So if you take Third Line out,
Okay, got down
And-
the hill and up the
Yep.
hill. Got it. Thank you.
And here's another picture of the culvert. This one's from the west, showing the crossing and the two entrances again. Next slide. This is a photograph of the deterioration. You can see how the end of that culvert is starting to collapse and fall in, which is gonna start to impact the capacity of the culvert. Next slide. That's the one end. And this is the other end, which is also starting to fold in, as you can see. Next slide.
Okay, so with this work, a Grand River Conservation Authority permit is required to complete the work. That permit has been, request has been submitted. We will be following an in-water work window, when the work will only be done between July and to September. Flow within the creek itself will be maintained throughout the work. Sediment and erosion control measures will be included and installed prior to any commencement of work. And the complete closure of the work will decrease both the cost and length of time to complete. Next slide. And then these are some future grant projects that are within the area of Six Nations. Since we were here, we thought we'd just, highlight a few more other projects that will be coming in the future if there are any additional questions that we had. So I believe there's been some consultation on the Mount Pleasant drinking water distribution system improvements, which is the replacement of the Birch water main that does service the property owned by Six Nations. So that is being highlighted. McBlain Bridge will be rehabilitated in the future on County Road 22. Scott Bridge, Petty, Douglas. These are all just noted because of potential impacts from traffic movement outside of the Six Nations territory. And then the Cockshut Road and Birch intersection possibly will be converted to a roundabout in the future as well. It's being included in the current budget to council to start the design process. And we thought we'd highlight that just because we know that there are members of your community that travel along that road, and it's been noted that it is potentially, there's been some issues there with sightlines, not necessarily sightlines, just there's been some accidents and some concern. So the thought would be if we went to a roundabout control, that eliminates high-speed collisions and potential accidents.
Yeah, thank you very much. Before I just open it up to questions for Hazel, one question I had is what would be the traffic impact on that? Do you have any estimates of there'd be an increase in traffic, right, in the detour route? Would it be fairly minimal?
There will be.
I can't remember the exact traffic that's gonna be detoured, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think we have 200 or 300 cars a day on that culvert. I can get you the exact numbers through Mike if that works.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a few hundred, but it's not a few thousand. So there is some, but it's not, and it's all passenger vehicles. There's not expected to be any truck traffic.
Right, that's what, just a negligible type of traffic flow, right? Okay, good. And what is the overall cost of that project? Would you say?
I don't have the exact budget off the top of my head, but it's under 500,000.
Okay, great. Hazel?
I didn't see in your list of future work or whatever you're intending to do. What about fourth line right up to Brantford there? Like you can only go so far on fourth line, then you got a detour over to third line to get into Brantford.
At this time, that's not been considered. I believe it was closed because of the encroachment on the river itself. Right.
Yeah, my understanding is the closure is within the Six Nations territory, not within the River Road portion, which is in Brant. There is the closure in Brant further out, but that we went through an EA process for that to keep it permanently closed, just because the failure caused by the river extends beyond where the existing road base is.
Oh, okay. It was just faster to get to Brantford.
Yeah, Audrey?
Question. What constitutes, the decision being made to put a roundabout on a certain road? Criteria, I guess.
There is some criteria. There's nothing really set in stone. It's more of a decision based on our previous experience, things we learned through the region of Waterloo, and the decision in that location, if we were to put in traffic signals, there's still the opportunity for someone to go through a red light and still have a collision, a high-speed collision and a fatality at that point. So when you start considering that, then and if we believe it would happen, the roundabout's a safer choice. And that's where you go. So you just expend the money to put in the roundabout and save lives versus worry about converting it to traffic signals and then potentially having that fatality or other high-speed collision that causes issues.
And if I could do a follow-up.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Yeah, I agree that there should be a roundabout there. Excuse me, because when you're coming in from Mount Pleasant to the Cockshut Road, it's really hard sometimes to get out onto that road or even cross the road on First Line and to come onto Six Nations. So, and when will it be complete?
If it goes forward with design, I don't know if we could quickly get the design done in 24, but it would probably be designed over 24, 25 and constructed in 26.
Thank you.
Elena?
Hi, I see that you have an in-water work window from July to September. Is that the total work window?
Yes, it's only expected to take 6.
I think it was 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, it's not, we'll be done within that window.
Okay, and
So-
your signage for the detour, will that happen? How soon before your start time will that be up for people?
We would take any interest that you have in how long we think that we should post it. I think we typically we try to get it out a month ahead to let people know, but if there's anything that you would like different.
I would
to-
imagine that most of that traffic is probably semi-local, so would kind of know the area, but for people that don't know the area, maybe, I don't know, what's the standard?
Can I take that, Mark? So our standard is, put signage out, fairly early, just advising of the rehabilitation of the road closure.
Yeah.
And then when we get to construction, we'll put detour signage out typically a week ahead of time, before we actually do the closure, so that people can get used to the road a week ahead. This year, actually, immediately after budget approval, we will have budget approved signs up, so people know right away, and that's anticipated to be this week, is that correct, Mark?
Yes.
Budget approval, so we may have signs out as early as next week advising of the project.
Perfect, thank you.
I just had one question too. When is the exact date you're starting the construction or?
We don't know yet because we still are at the hands of the contractor that is awarded the contract. But there would be, within the contract documents, it would say that the in-water work window is from, if it's July 1 or July 15th until the end of September, and that the work would have to be done in that time period. So, but they would provide us an actual start date for sure, and we can pass that information on through Michael.
And that notification will be on the signage too.
We can put that on there, yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Leslie?
I'm not sure if there's any bus routes down there, but if there are, is that your responsibility to notify them?
Yes, hopefully we would be done before school starts. So it would be started after school ends and before school starts within that, July, August, so there wouldn't be an issue. But then we would have to ensure that they were aware of it.
Elena?
It's a follow-up for Audrey's question. A question from community member about the Cockshut Road and Birch Road intersection. And if you'll just give me a minute to pull it up. The future development plan for that area, how our rights and interests have been included in the official plan for that roundabout. I don't know if you can speak to that offhand right now.
If it when you refer to the official plan, that's not Joe or I's part that we deal with, so we don't, the official plan is out right now with the province for approval,
Okay,
the one that was recently submitted. The inclusion of this roundabout is from a safety standpoint. It has nothing to do with the development beyond that. It's purely safety and for the road users.
thank you.
Sorry, no further questions. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm just going to ask for, just for a mover to accept the presentation for the culvert project as information. Could I have a mover? Moved by Audrey, second by Cynthia. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. So thank you very much for coming in and sharing that information with us today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much. We're moving on to number 5, the adoption of political liaison minutes and action item. Yes, a question, Amos?
So what's the process? They came here and made a presentation to give us information. So are you now making a recommendation that we approve? Or are we just gonna go up in fairy dust?
Mike, was that, that was in the works for quite a while, I believe. Was there a prior approval on that?
So my understanding is it just needs to become for information, so council's aware, and then we'll make sure we get ads out in the paper so the community's aware. This is kind of a unique situation because it's right where Bateman Line ends, so there's no way around it. So they gotta basically put that detour sign deep within our territory, like a concession deep, right? So it's a bit odd. But basically the presentation was here just to say, hey, this is what the plan is, and we're gonna make sure everyone's aware. But it's going ahead unless there's a strong objection.
So they'll be coming again further to get a prior approval for that, or is that?
No,
it's not necessary.
No, I don't think it's necessary unless, of course, council wants that to happen, but it's more or less just an information piece.
Question, Hazel?
Yeah, I asked the same question that Amos had in regards to, okay, do we just leave it as it is now, or should we approve it to say that we're going to allow them to detour through Six Nations for that period of time?
So I guess process wise, I'm not aware of any council approvals prior for any kind of detours that have done like off reserve. It's mainly handled in this fashion where, you know, vendors would maybe even through the CAP team, they present to say, okay, this is the plan. But it's more of an information piece. But again, if the process wants to be changed, I'm happy to comply.
I don't know what the process.
So, Nathan, can you clarify on the process of that? Would we require prior approval for that?
Yeah, I think as Mike's laid out, I think in terms of the process now, it's just now actioning the information that came from the presentation, which is to do the due diligence and get the notices out to the communities.
Great. Well, thank you very much. If there's any concerns in terms of traffic flow or anything like that, that can be addressed at that time. Okay, great. Thank you. So we have a mover toward the, to accept that as a, just information. Okay, well, Audrey, and seconded by Cynthia. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Hearing or seeing none, the motion is carried. Moving on to the adoption of the political liaison minutes and action items for February the 12th, 2024. Could I have a mover to accept those minutes? Audrey?
Yeah, I just want to know that if Hazel and Melba accepted to attend the March. Oh, that's right, I'm scheduling, so I must be ahead of you. No, it's in the minutes. If they accepted to attend the March 19th to the 21st at the Metro Convention Center. Yeah, that's what's in here right now. Check to see if it's.
Yes. Cynthia?
Is that the day we're supposed to be with representatives from the surrounding municipalities? 19th.
Leslie?
I apologize for having not been here that morning, but I want to add myself to that list for the wellness.
Yeah, we can do that at scheduling then. Okay. Any further questions concerning the minutes? Well, then could I have a mover for the adoption of the political liaison minutes and action items of February the 12th, 24, moved by Carrie, a second by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, hearing or seeing none, motion is carried. Moving on to the recommendation from Public Works, Mike is here. It's 6.1. I'll read it to the public so they can get the background information. Whereas the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council recognizes that access to water is a priority and is a basic human right. Whereas the 2019 Six Nations Community Plan has identified expanding water mains to the entire community and identifying assistance program for hookup cost to the water main as objectives. Whereas the 2021 Housing Water Service Connection Strategy recommended to establish the Six Nations Water Connection Fund as a mechanism for community contributions from local businesses and philanthropists to allow for greater access to community members in need of water connections. Whereas philanthropists are donating money to address the water issues for Six Nations community members. And whereas the execution of phase 1 of the Housing Water Connection Strategy identified that Six Nations community members need assistance to get access to water to their homes where vulnerable community members are residing. Whereas more funding is needed to support the expansion of water mains to more areas of Six Nations. And of course, the motion is therefore that the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council approves the establishment of a reserve fund in the amount of $110,900 from donations received to date to be used for water service connections and the expansion of water mains. Further, that this fund will be marked and promoted for the benefit of the members of the Six Nations of the Grand River. Mike, would you like to comment further on that? Great, thanks.
Yeah, so for everyone's information, there was a report done that's a strategy basically that went about and looked at how we can get more people connected to the water main, because what we're seeing in the studies that are coming out, and it's quite consistent, even before my time starting here, is that there's a large amount of personal wells that are contaminated. When I say large, I'm saying 80–90% that they're finding. So our strategy in addressing that is to get people off of those and connect them to the water main. Now, there's two issues at play here. There's one, we need to get the water main out to the entire territory, of which we've built a nice water treatment plant that can do that, that has a capacity. And two, we need to knock down the barriers for people to actually have the ability to connect to that water main. And I think we've done a great job. I got some things here that I'll share. So just cost estimates, as far as we've done so far. So for the water connection, the strategy laid out a 12-year strategy. And the total dollar value was $38 million. That's 38 million. For the water main expansions, the other piece, just north of the third line and south of sixth line, it's a 14-year strategy and it costs $46 million. So it's a lot of money. We recently applied to the community trust to look at getting 50 elders connected to the water main by subsidizing those costs, and that was denied. We've done a lot of good work through the councils past and this one as well, just in regards to bringing our numbers up. So, even 5 years ago, we were at 9% of our population that was connected to the water main. We're at around 30 now. And we're able to do that through subsidizing water connections through the Jordan's Principal Fund. So we're able to connect people with children 18 or younger living in the home 50% of the time. And we were able to connect 146 homes. We ran into some situations that were, it's a hard reality of our First Nation is that there's people with children and vulnerable community members that don't even have plumbing in their homes, living in third world conditions. So this is a big passion of mine, and I know everyone around the table here to really get something done. We also have a number of connections waiting, 123 waiting for funding because again, we've been able to do that phase 1 of the connection strategy to connect 146 people with children. But just to kind of give you an example of what those 123 applications waiting funding consist of, there's 55 meeting the Jordan's Principal Fund, meaning that they have children 18 or younger living in the home. And there's 57 homes with elders in the homes. So elders are calling us a lot, asking, when they can take advantage of an opportunity. And honestly, I get calls and emails all the time from people outside a community, just reading up on our issues, saying, how can we help? And in regards to, in the motion you heard, there's donated monies already. There's been a gentleman donating, Daniel Maus. He's donated the majority of that $110,000 roughly, which is, incredible. But once we're able to establish this fund and market it, I envision it kind of like the Save the Evidence campaign. We can go out, politically advocate, and then we can also take donations from philanthropists or members, however they can donate. And then we can strategize at the community level to say, okay, here's what we have. Let's plan the next 5 years about how we're going to attack this and get more people off of these contaminated wells and on the water line.
Questions? I have Cynthia, Amos, Carrie, Helen, Audrey, Hazel, and Leslie. Oh, sorry, Melba. Oh, boy. And we'll go right around the table, I think. Yeah, we'll start with Cynthia. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Uh, 55 homes, you have children under 18, is that?
Yeah, so we have, so the question was, there's just a clarification, 55 homes that are applications waiting. Yes, there's 55 homes that have children 18 or under that have applications waiting. But having said that, as we expand the water main out to other areas, that's sure to increase, right? Because we're capturing a whole different area.
How much is it per home?
We're seeing costs approximately $25,000 per home to connect.
Really? Just a question, you might not have the answer. But with Jordan's Principal, maybe council knows, have we applied for enhanced funding? That is, I understand if you can do a projection of need, children's need for Jordan's Principal, you can request enhanced funding from ISC. And what they would do then is do an amendment to our current multi-year agreement, because Health Canada no longer is for us. They are put under our multi-year agreement. I don't know, but maybe we could you probably wouldn't know, but we could follow up with them to see if they couldn't do that, or have they tried to do that? I don't know. But whilst I'm at it though, I got another question for you. This was, you requested to be, put into reserves, 110,900. I see in the reserve ending 2023, Public Works has in reserve $523,033. Do you know what the intent of that particular reserve is?
So there's a number of projects that were funded by ISC that we're looking at that fund to do. So they're earmarked for specific things. Or potentially what could have happened is that there's a carryover more than 1 or 2 years and finances just said we're putting in a reserve fund. But I can definitely work to clarify what that is.
Okay, so with your request, it's just that we had asked our finance people, and we looked at the audit, and we've got quite a huge, a significant accumulated surplus, and within that are the reserves. And we had asked the finance, what's the intent of those reserves? Usually there's an intent, but there doesn't appear, or they cannot find a paper trail. So for this purpose, do you think it would be better if we had, like the way it has, to note it, under the reserve Public Works, 523,000, and simply add that amount on there? Or should we have another line, Public Works water expansion donation, so it doesn't get lost? Or do you track it?
So that's more of a finance question, but my assumption is it's going to be a separate line item to specific to that expansion. And again, we'll clarify what that reserve is exactly. But when she says we have a big surplus, that's not Public Works, that's all the council. So don't think that Public Works has this big surplus, because we're in a deficit in the millions of dollars every single year. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Amos?
Yeah, this is the first time I heard this kind of consolidated figures that you have. So I don't know what the listeners are, or people online are hearing. I was wondering, has there ever been an opportunity to have an open house or some kind of a think tank for the community to come and hear these statistics? You're the first one since I got back on council that said that there's third world living conditions in this community. I would like to find out what that is. What is the definition of that for this community? And what does that mean? Is because they have no hookup for water, hydro, whatever. But I think we should, as a community, be understanding of this, so that we know what our roadmap is going to be for the next 4 years, and making water hookups a priority, perhaps, if there's a surplus. So I think we need to have that in front of us in order to have that kind of planning, and to get the media on side to say, this is where we are at, this is where we want to go. I think we should be doing that. And I know I heard when I first came on, oh, we want to be involved with engagement with the community. This is a great opportunity to do that. So I just suggest maybe we do that one evening or one weekend, whatever, to just update the community about where we are in this third world living condition that we're having at Six Nations. Only my thought right now.
Yeah, thank you, Amos. Also to that point, from a political level, knowing that data, whether we get it from Zach or through Mike, it will help us moving forward. Even in Roma, as we had a meeting with Minister Kanjan, and one of the numbers that we were using was our infrastructure and also our water, trying to press them into providing the adequate funding that we require as compared to municipalities as to what they get. And those numbers, like you were saying, would be and those conditions, the description of those conditions would be very good as we move politically, forward. And as you know, we're trying to get that hookup from Nanticoke. Right? I know the chief, Hill, has been working with, I think it was Mayor Bentley and Martin in Norfolk to get that, to get that water hookup coming from Nanticoke up, Highway 6. So, yeah, but to his point, that that type of information would be helpful.
There's a supplementary comment that would be great for an information night. I didn't want to make a think tank, but just an information night so the whole community knows where we're standing. Just what I'm suggesting.
Okay, thanks, Amos. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, and now for that, Amos, that was my thought exactly, is that once the new committee structure is in place, I wanted to go through and orient everybody on not only our water situation, because we have several studies, strategies, plans ready to go, not only for water, wastewater, we have our bridges and culverts, we have our road resurfacing. So to bring everyone up to speed and then step together in unison to see, hey, here's a strategy, here's what we want to accomplish in the next 4 years, and here's how we want to do it. And really excited to do that with the committee, and you're on the committee, so really excited for that.
Thanks. Carrie?
All the lines that are in now, are they connected to the property line? Do they go to the property line?
No, not all of them. So we don't have curb stops to property line and all where the water main's extended as of right now, not in every location.
And you said the average price is 25,000 to take it to the, if it was at the property line, to take it to the house would be like 25,000?
I think 25,000, because it was a mixed bag of property line and from the water main, right? So, and that's coming from that 146, those 146 connections we've done, and then the credit connections. So looking at those numbers, and of course, prices are increasing. But it all depends again, is there a crossing? How far back are you? But that's kind of the average we're seeing.
And all the houses that don't have plumbing, I guess it's obvious that you can't send the line up, eh?
Yeah, that's just it. And I think the strategy behind that was to really work with those homeowners to come up with a specific Jordan's Principle application, because there's children in the home, there's no plumbing. So just really trying to help them as best we can.
Helen?
Yeah, I'm thinking along the lines of what Amos said. I think we need to get all the people in our community, all the money people in our community, and have a big think tank. How much money do we have in our community that we could be, and make water the top priority of? And it would be councils, us council, it would be both the trusts. We got 2 trusts, for God's sakes. 2 trusts, it would be whoever has money, HDI, some of the money makers in our community that we know, and sit down and have a big meeting and think tank and say, we got to do something about helping people get these water lines. Because we've never done that. We've never asked people like that. We've never, like, our finance department is telling us we got lots of money to spend. So why are we not spending it to put in water? And I know Cynthia had asked for how much money we have for all the different pockets, and I don't think she's got that yet, but we need to start looking at this stuff, like the reserve funds, for example. Some of it's been sitting there for years. Some of them, the money never changes. I'm assuming it's like 72 million one year, the next year it's 74, it keeps going up. But it's still sitting there. So are some of those projects that are under there maybe not going to happen, or have they been sitting there for like 10 years? Or how long does money sit in reserve funds when it's not being used? We need to know those kind of things. There's I don't know how much money in the deferred funds, and I'm asking the same question. How long has that money been sitting there? And why are these projects not getting done? And if they're not getting done, can we not use the money to help people put in water? We got to really look at the money. Fine tooth comb to the money in this community, including council. That's my suggestion. I don't know who's going to hit it up, but somebody should.
Thanks, Helen. Audrey?
Good morning, Mike. My question is that, let me be clear and please clarify. 25,000 is what it costs to have the whole water thing to the house, and it's paid for by the homeowner. Is that true? Or do you break it down?
And so there's two methods, right? So there's a subsidized water connection strategy that we're trying to say, we want to make sure that people are able to connect, but then there's people that connect privately at their own cost, so that both of those are out there. Right now, when people call and ask what options there are, I do explain this. There's this opportunity if you want to apply, but there's no funding right now. We're always looking. There's a kind of a waiting list, and we're gonna have to prioritize what demographic or what situations would get the funding, because it's not gonna be enough, right? Or they can just pay it on their own, and some opt to pay it on their own. And in the report, I think it goes around, equity and making sure that everyone has the same opportunity. So those that have the money and are able to connect, should do that. But some of the less fortunate that can't, just can't afford it for whatever reason, whatever their situation is, there's an avenue for them to go. So that's how this whole, strategy is set up.
Just follow up.
Go ahead, Audrey.
So the ones that who then may have a water line going in front of their house. So if they have young children or people with handicaps in the house, no car, no way to get money, those are the ones who are really, really struggling then. Because that's when you see more health issues come up, more hospitalizations come up, all kinds of things to do with sanitation, transmission of diseases, etc. So are they being given a priority on the list? Our young mothers and our seniors, our elders, our people with disabilities?
I think right now, we're just encouraging everyone to apply, and then we'll work with the committee. And I know we had the consultant on, it was Amy, all consultant, ALL consultant. So working with them to come up with what the phase 2 looks like, because we got council approval to do the phase 1. Because it was specific to Jordan's principal funding, we had to do the 18 and under. But if there's funding that doesn't have any parameters around that, yes, let's discuss what those factors are that we make our priority. Absolutely.
I could continue on. Okay, where are you on this plan of 12 years? You know, you brought it up, you said that about two years ago now, at least. So we're on year 10 right now, backwards?
Basically, so, and that's part of my reason coming here and doing this, because every year I don't do anything, then we fall behind a year, right? So really, we've gotten 1 year out of this so far, and I think that report's 2 years old now, roughly, and there's nothing on the books for the summertime. So that's why I'm pushing to say, I'm hearing there's money out there, and I don't know where it stands, but if there is, we can spend it. And we can spend it on something very important, right?
One last one. I read over those water reports and they were very well done. And is it possible to get reports like that out sooner, like to council and chief, so we can be reading them and knowing what's going on and kept up to date? And this map here, can that be updated? So you say we're only a year into it. And I'm having a hard time seeing where first line is and where second line is and the cross lines. I don't even see them mentioned in here.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, for sure. So whenever a report like this is published, we have the consultant to come, and we come with a consultant to do a presentation to council for just to bring everyone up to speed. And then they have to be approved by council to be official, right? So, and that's what I'm saying is, once the committee structure is in place, we'll work to make sure that everyone gets back up to speed in the committees, so that we're all on the same page as to what the plans are and where we stand. But absolutely, I'll work to get updated information through our committees and out to the rest of council as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey. Hazel?
I have a couple questions, Mike. This year, will there be any water installations happening?
As of right now, we have no funds identified to do that, so I don't, it's not saying it can happen, because we can do that later in the year. But hopefully, the funding comes available and we figure out, I guess, how we're allocating funds, and then we can definitely plan and do it. The next question that comes to mind is, what's the next area to get water main extension? That would be Tuscarora Road between 5th and 6th. That's where we'd go.
Just further to that now, I sit on the community trust, and you had applied for extension monies, et cetera. And you just mentioned that you were not successful in getting that. As a counselor, sitting there and assigned by this council to be a rep, you're not allowed to vote. Like I see that community trust dollars there, and it stays pretty well the big same amount year after year. It's they only dole out the interest earned on those millions. And I have asked them before, like, how come you don't, give maybe $1 million? Like, I know the police had needed money, water needs money. And the thought is always, council's got a whole lot of money. And it's almost futile. And furthermore, you're in a conflict of interest for even asking because I'm a counselor. I don't think I'm in a conflict when I'm sitting here elected in this position for the community, trying to make things better for the community. And every time you turn around, you're accused of being in a conflict. It really feels defeating. It reminds me of, say for instance, if a horrible tornado or whatever happened, a disaster, would it still be that thinking, no, we're not giving any money because we got to get this interest to grow, and it's basically their money. Whatever way you want to take it, I guess I'm grumbling. Thank you.
Thank you. Melba?
Thanks. Thanks. Good work again, Mike. Thank you very much for doing outreach. I have mentioned it a couple times before that it's really important not to only pursue funding from the feds and the province, but on the inside. We all know that we have a lot of business people and, as you mentioned, philanthropists. Yeah. So I think that's a good work, and hopefully other departments take advantage of that too. We used to say as elders, I used to hear them years ago, we know who is well off. That old saying, and I look at some of those things that elders had said, and they were right. So I thank you very much for pursuing that and getting a lot of dollars. And certainly, if you don't, if they don't understand what the need is, not a lot of them will come forward. But if they do, then a lot of them have interest too in certain areas. So thank you very much for looking on the inside. Thank you.
Thank you, Melba. Elena?
We must be getting down to the end then, if it's to me. Thanks for coming in. As you know, I am a huge proponent of this particular endeavor. And at the trust, I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but that's how Public Works and Mike were able to have the last three water main extensions installed in the community. And now with the new agreement with economic development, Public Works is no longer allowed to apply to Economic Development Trust. So it's really important for this table to consider where Mike's going to get that funding from. And then my suggestion for I guess it would be for the committee, would be for them to heavily prioritize seniors in this application process. I think access to clean drinking water could mean the difference for a lot of seniors between staying in the home longer and having to go to the lodge or someplace like that. And even just trucking water from here to there, drinking water. So I think that would probably be my suggestion for a priority. And then to keep the donation, this reserve fund, on a separate line, if you want to go out and acquire more donations for this, just for accountability to those donors. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for your work.
Great, thank you, Elena. Leslie, and then we'll,
Hi, Mike. Okay, so you talked about the contaminated wells as well here at Six Nations. And I have a well, a drilled well. And then there's people who have dug wells, tiled wells, rock wells. Are you, like, what kind of wells are you talking about? The contamination?
I don't specifically know. In those reports, they look at drilled and dug. So those are the two specific ones that come to mind. But again, like there's reports ranging back from, I think, 2001, and there's more recent ones done through the Oneganos project, that they've done a lot of different things. And I do know, I guess for community members watching, there's free well testing through council. I don't exactly know what the number is, it escapes me at this time, but I know if you call health services, that you can kind of get directed to a resource where you can get that.
Okay, what is the cost associated with filling those wells back in?
So there would be a cost. So we use a certain provincial standard as a best practice. So there's a certain amount of bentonite and different things to backfill a well. Sometimes that is a point of contention with people because people want to keep their wells. But from our perspective, we don't want any kind of cross contamination with the communal system that we have. So we do say that, yes, you need to decommission your well if you're going to get into the water line. And there are some community members that swear by their well, which is, of course, is everyone's choice. But some don't like to give the well up, some will. But there's a heavy cost. I think it's probably around 5 to 10 roughly. If I was gonna, yeah.
I'm just curious as to, there's some businesses down here, so all manufacturers require water. So when they use their water and it becomes not good water anymore, is it just dumped back into our ground? Is it reconnected to a system that goes out to purify, or what are you finding?
We don't have too much perspective on industry, because there's no, I would say, community standards around private development. We're not, basically the only involvement we would have is if there were to be like an environmental emergency, from the environment side, or from public works side, we would get called out to pump out a septic tank, those types of things. But there are a lot of technologies around gray water that people can use if it doesn't need to be drinkable, and they can just use it as process. So I hope that industry is taking advantage of that because it's more sustainable and better for the environment.
yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mike. Dean, and then we'll kind of wrap it up.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate this information. So you did mention that the water treatment plant would be able to service the whole reserve, correct?
Yes.
And with, let's just say, all the water mains, everywhere's connected, it can service the whole reserve?
Yeah, yeah. Once we actually expand it, it can service that. Yes.
Okay, and okay, let's say hypothetically it is, all the water mains are connected. What capacity would in a percentage form, let's say, what capacity would the water treatment plant be outputting at that point?
So the water treatment plant in its state right now, it would have to be upgraded. We have to add different trains on a treatment. So it was built to be expandable. So if we're ever running out of capacity, we can definitely look to add. So that's how they built it to a certain spec. However, once we actually get money to do section by section, because we're expanding the water main road by road section, we take it to the engineers that designed it to say, yes, we need to start expanding, or no, we're fine in the way we are. We have our capacity now. And our operators are excellent operators. They'll let us know if they'll see on their end what the capacities are. So there's never really, we'll never be in a situation where we're maxed, so to speak.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Dean. I'd like to move right on into the motion there on the therefore. And I'd like to read it again for the community. Therefore, that the Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council approves the establishment of a reserve fund in the amount of $110,900 from donations received to date to be used for water service connections and the expansion of water mains. Further, that this fund will be marketed and promoted for the benefit of the members of the Six Nations of the Grand River. Could I have a mover? Cynthia? A question.
Suggestion. In that therefore, be it resolved clause, could we have approves the establishment of a public works water service connection reserve fund? Just add that in there. Again, to clarify, because we asked finance, and they don't seem to know, can give us any answers on anything. So it's clearly marked. We know what it's for.
Okay. That to be added to the therefore. Right. At the end of the resolution, it would read, Brooke, do you have that?
Yeah, in the first therefore, it would read, therefore, that the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council approves the establishment of a public works water service connection reserve fund.
Having added that, I would, okay, Mike, go ahead.
So just a question. So when we worded that, we worded it water, just, we kind of cut it off there because we know we need money for water service connections, but we also need money for the water main expansions. So I don't want to kind of pigeonhole us into saying it's only for services.
Alina, do you have?
Would Cynthia be okay with a water connection strategy reserve?
Does that meet
That meets,
your issue?
yeah, that meets it because that connection strategy speaks directly to both.
Okay.
Right, and that would be a separate item, right? Okay. Is that, okay? Yes, seconded by, Melba. Alina? Oh. Okay, moved by, let's read it. Okay, well, I need the mover. Moved by Alina. Okay, second by Melba. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing or seeing none, motion is carried. Well, yeah, thank you very much, Mike. It was quite informative today. It was good to get the community also, just aware of what's going on with the water. Thank you. Audrey?
This is for Mike before he goes. There are some nuggets that came out this morning that I would like to follow up on. One was, I believe what Elena said was that we should be able to have water trucked to people who have wells or cisterns. People, it'll make it easier for them, especially in the roads that won't get it for 12 years from now, to help them out with finances and a water truck and start hauling water, because it's a lot cheaper than going out and to get a water haulage truck to come in, because it's triple and quadruple the amount that it would cost coming from our own water supply. Could we look into that, please?
For sure. So there are opportunities out there like that, and again, work with our committee to figure out what that looks like. But yeah, those are things that I've seen that are potentials. So definitely we'll continue that
It
conversation.
would help all the people out who are struggling to pay for water and who struggling to get water all over the reserve. Yeah,
Yeah, just one thing, Mike, yeah, thanks for that donation program. That's very good. But say, for example, I had a big chunk of money. How do I get it to this fund? I just give it to Public Works?
So what we'll do is I'll work with finance and comms, and again, that was part of the marketing and promotion piece of that resolution, to make sure that it's clear how to donate, what you're donating for, and then pushing that out through the community.
Great, thanks, Mike. Yeah. Oh,
And we should do a press release of what we just did for the community as well, that we're establishing this reserve fund to help with water hookups. The community needs to know that we're trying to do something, and this will be one of the first ones we can test, that we're establishing this reserve fund. And because it costs $25,000 to hook up a house, I don't think that, I didn't know that. I don't know how many in the community knows that's what it costs. Either it is they're slamming us because we're not doing anything. There was something on Facebook all weekend about that. Again, about us. So I think we need to get in front of it, put some good words out there, a press release saying, these are our efforts to date, as of today or whatever. Just a thought.
And good point, yeah, and then bring that to the chief's office, make sure that, yeah, that goes out in a very comprehensive, concise form too, so that people understand. Yeah, great, thank you. Moving right along to item number 7 on the agenda, the recommendation from our CAP team, the consultation and accommodation process team. Who do we have today? Do we have Taylor, Lonnie, Philip, and Peter, I believe, is in the waiting area. Welcome, everyone. Always looking forward to your CAP review and also giving us the highlights of all the work that you've been doing. So who would like to start with your team?
Peter can start and then I'll add anything. I have a couple other things for reminder.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Sounds good. So if you take a look at the team activity report for January 15th to February 16th, there's a number of items, some which I'll highlight, including the first one, which is about the Dufferin Quarry Milton extension. Basically, the brass tacks is this quarry company would like to extend their production on the Greenbelt lands. The CAP team, through direction of council, is opposed to any development on Greenbelt lands. So we had a meeting with the Ministry of Natural Resources to try to urge the government not to approve this proposal. However, we weren't satisfied with the meeting. The ministry was basically unwilling to consider not approving it. So we're escalating it to Indigenous Affairs, and we'll update council on our progress when we meet with them. Another item, and for the person scrolling, to actually be sure not to show the next a few pages in, just because there's one item that was for a previous in-camera discussion. That's the OPG one. I understand council's been updated on this Ontario power generation new projects file. I just want you to know there still have not been any updates on that. Next item, we had a meeting with Municipal Affairs in Housing, and it was a first of what we hope is going to be a regular series of meetings, probably starting bi-monthly and then quarterly. A lot of the work we do relates to ministry decisions, so it's important that we now have, access to, higher level decision makers from that ministry. Another item I wanted to highlight.
Peter, just
yes,
for a second, I would have a question from Audrey.
Yes, thanks. Good morning, Peter. If you go back to the one with the Ontario power generation, one that you're talking about, I think we have to be really careful and just not pass over some of this stuff, because this is really important. They're looking for 5 various.
I'm very sorry, Councillor, if I may interrupt you. It's just this information is restricted to chief and council at the moment, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, you mentioned it, so anyway, are you going to be back for the in council, in camera?
We haven't been advised of that, but I'd certainly be happy if more information about that, if there was interest.
Yeah, because it's those sites are really close to rivers, and we have to be very, very careful that we protect the land and the rivers.
Yeah, and certainly a very, very large issue. So please get in touch if you would like to talk more in depth for in camera. With the Ministry of Transportation item, the ministry wants to build, the colossal Highway 413. There's also more routine projects engaged in by the ministry, including one that will change the route of Highway 7, and that includes a bridge going over the Grand River. We've been pressuring the ministry for a number of months to kind of get to brass tacks and talk about accommodation for their projects, but they've been continuously putting us off, saying that it's this group of directors that'll have to make the decisions. And at this point, we decided that we will hold off on future meetings with the Ministry of Transportation until they're able to get people that can meaningfully discuss accommodations with us. We had a meeting with Environment Climate Change Canada about some efforts they're going to do to find more about the chemical composition at different parts in the Grand River. That's certainly, from an environmental perspective, something that really interests us, and we'll certainly let council know when they have findings about the water composition. Another item is just an accommodation discussed with Empire Homes, where the accommodation would be 50 acres. Well, of course, conversations with the company are continuing. There's also legal conversations, but we would, potentially have a briefing note on this topic later in the year. Lastly, just under Atura Power, we had a meeting discussed their Niagara hydrogen update. The one concrete thing out of that is that there should be a memo of understanding that will provide capacity funding for the CAP team. We expect to receive the MOU that's been approved on their side sometime this week, and we'd expect to bring it to council in the next month or two. Those are my highlights.
Yeah, great, Peter. Did you have anything to add, Taylor?
I was just gonna send a reminder that we're having the ATR dinner for the community on March 20th, 5 to 7 at the community hall. Yeah, at the community hall. So everyone's welcome to attend that. That was just my only. A reminder will be sent out. I know I've heard it on the radio a couple times from last time. So yeah, I just wanted to remind it as it's coming up.
And that is March 20th at the community hall. At what time?
5 to 7.
5 to 7. On the ATR process.
Yeah,
Correct.
and what we and the issues with it.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions for our CAP team? Audrey?
Oh, my phone's calling here. Good morning and welcome. I would like to say to whoever took the notes and minutes this month, did an excellent job. When you just read this over, you have a better understanding as me, as a counselor, of what is going on at CAP. So I would commend that person, and I think it's a really well written. And so when you just gloss over them, at least when we read them, we know what's going on. And you're doing a good job, everyone, and keep up the good work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd also like to add to that, as you know, we're getting into the new committee and portfolio committee system. And that, as you had mentioned earlier, Peter, that, you require certain political support in certain areas. And I think that we had a preliminary meeting with some of the counselors that are going to be involved. And I guess it was quite enlightening for us. And also that we're going to be on board to support you politically and see if we can move this forward. So yeah, thank you for all your good work. And as we move forward, hopefully we'll be able to communicate better amongst ourselves and with the community. So thanks again. I would like to get on to the recommendation. I would like to read it out to the community. Whereas the consultation and accommodation process team provides a monthly report to Six Nations of the Grand River elected council to political liaison on their activities that is accepted as information. And whereas this month's consultation and accommodation process team activity report is attached, which you provided, therefore be it resolved that the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council accept the January 2024 to February 2024 consultation and accommodation process team activity report as information. Could I have a mover? Moved by Audrey, a second. Second by Leslie. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing or seeing none, the motion is carried. So yeah, thank you very much, CAP team, and we'll be looking forward to working closer to you with you guys in the future.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Now, just before we get to scheduling, we would like to add those new items from the in-camera political liaison agenda. They were numbered 4, 6, and 9, but the Cannabis Commission members didn't expect that change, so they are presently not present. So I'd like to move on to the item number 9 in your in-camera, and that is Trevor Bomberry's report on the Navajo Nation visit. Is Trevor available? Oh, yes. Welcome, Trevor.
Scano, Councillor Greg. Yeah, this is just a follow-up to the council orientation back in December, where I had proposed that council could possibly attend the Navajo Nation to view what their self-government looks like. The briefing notes pretty self-explanatory, and to me, this would be in preparation for our upcoming litigation. We could see what successes and challenges the Navajo Nation faced in developing their self-government. So I'm just looking for, a yes or no, I guess, today, on if the council agrees to send a delegation, and I can begin the process of organizing that visit.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. Do you have your contacts there at the Navajo Nation? And are they aware of Six Nations?
Yes, I do. I'm in contact with the Navajo lawyer, and the lawyer had reached out just after I had returned from my leave of absence there, and asking if Six Nations is still interested in receiving a presentation.
Oh, great, thank you. Any comments or questions? Helen?
Yeah, are they gonna be coming here? Cause he said they wanted to know if we were gonna do a presentation. I've been doing a lot of research on the Navajos, because I had talked to Lonnie and Phil about their land registry system. Lonnie and Phil wanted me to look into it. Actually, they thought we should go down there, but I've been just doing research on it, and they got an awesome land department that I think we should have, but their land registry system, they lease their land to people. They don't, you don't own it. You just lease it for 75 years. And they do a lot. They're under the First Nations Land Management Act. They're under all those stuff. So their land registries wouldn't be what we're looking for. But I love their land department. We could do that here. All kinds of, every one of the things that Ken Sandy does and every one of the things that Lori does in terms of land has its own department. And it sounds really good. So I was hoping we could do something with our land. I've been finding out too, they tax their people too. So they're a lot different than we are. But they're running into the same problems as us, because when they buy land, they got to turn it. They say when they buy land, they put it in federal trust. I think that's the same thing we're doing, right? We buy land and give it back to the feds. they, they're running into issues about doing that because all of the municipalities are starting to fight with them because they're losing tax money. I mean, they buy millions. They don't buy, 20 acres like we do. They're buying thousands of acres, so it's a big issue, but yeah, if Trevor goes down there, and I'm assuming that's what he's asking, really, I'd like him to really look at the land department to see. It's all on the internet. You can research everything and it's really good. So
Yeah, thank you, Helen, for that. Yeah, and also they're under kind of the American system. I think the 3 levels of government and they do things a bit differently, but it doesn't mean that we can't get ideas from them, especially moving forward. Is there any more further questions? Cynthia?
In the recommendation, it says delegation. So I think it's something, just from what I've heard, something that should bear some follow-up. But in this delegation, I would recommend that the lands membership, that's Lori, right? I forget her title now, manager, that she be part of that delegation that goes. And I wouldn't mind to be part of that particular delegation as well. And I don't know, because of what and it also because it's land, and we have lands membership and lands research. I think part of that delegation should also include I don't know his title yet. Director? Is Lonnie the director? The director of lands research? Just because it seems to bear directly with what the purpose of this trip is.
So specific to your request, I'll go ahead, Melba.
Yeah, thank you. Some years ago, when Ruby Jacobs was the director at Health, we did do a visit down to the Navajo Nation concerning health, and there was several areas that we got some good ideas, and I wondered if health should also be included in that, if at all possible, Trevor and council, that they could also have a meeting with health. One of the things that I remember also was that they were very advanced in technology. For example, I did mention to previous Chief Mark that when they were setting up our sound system here, I'm pretty sure that's where we were when they had it as such, where you just press a button, yay or nay, rather than what we're doing right now is, taking time and getting our sound happening. So we wouldn't have to, I guess, raise our hand, but it was yay or nay. So I found that very, very interesting. So if there can be consideration that health also be included. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So far that, I don't know if we could add that directly to this one, resolution, that the manager of lands and membership, the director of lands research, and of course, health representatives be included in this delegation, as well as counselors. I think Counselor Cynthia, right, who put in a request to attend as well. I think that could be added, as well, of course, the chief and her, if she requires. And also Trevor as well, right? Helen? Moved by Helen, seconded by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing or seeing none, motion's carried. So you'll make the proper adjustments, Brooke, on that one. Thank you. So now we have Arliss. We have Arliss here for the item number 6 on the in-camera. which concerned the recommendation from Social Services for the funding for the review of the 1965 welfare agreement. Arliss, would you like to give us just an overview? Great.
Great, okay. So as part of the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal settlement, one of the requirements were to review the 65 welfare agreement. So a lot of the conversations now have occurred regarding the allocation and how to fund individual First Nations and PTOs to engage in the 65 welfare agreement. So ISC had agreed to provide funding, and the technical table have recommended, and now the approval letter came that ISC has agreed to support by providing funding. And the allocation for Six Nations would be 335,771 to Six Nations to participate in the discussions on the 65 welfare agreement. There's been no process set up on how this is going to work other than here's some funding when it happens. Ontario's been a little bit delayed in participating. The reason why is because originally the 65 was only going to review the Child and Family Services section of the 65. And there's other federal legislation that's occurring around the other pieces of the components of the 65 welfare agreement. Cynthia is quite well aware of the contents of the 65 welfare agreement, that it includes child care, it includes homemakers, it includes Child and Family Services, and Ontario Works, or social assistance. So there's a lot of moving parts of that. So ISC has agreed to look at all of the components of the 65. Ontario has not yet. But this would give some movement to be able to have beginning conversations with and amongst First Nations and the feds.
Great. Thank you, Arliss. Are there any questions or comments? This is separate from that new legislation that just come down with the child welfare agreement?
Correct, yes.
This is totally separate from
Totally
that.
separate. So the 65 welfare agreement is agreement between Canada and Ontario, and which funding in Ontario gets reimbursed by the feds for those programs that they provide upfront. But Ontario has been very limited in the programs that they've funded over above what that original 65 welfare agreement is.
Great. Thank you. Helen?
Is there a time frame this money has to be spent, or can't sit there forever?
They haven't really determined a timeline, but because they haven't determined a timeline of when this is supposed to be finished or how long the review is going to take, the participation, and that they haven't really said that it has to be spent by March 31st, for example, because nobody's really agreed to what that process is going to be. They haven't put any time frames on it. Not to say that they won't, but.
Yeah, thank you. Any further question or comment? I would like to read out the recommendation for the community. It is a recommendation from Social Services for the funding for the review of the 1965 welfare agreement. Whereas the Chiefs of Ontario have intervenor status in the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, and the 1965 welfare agreement review is part of the Orders for Long-Term Reform of Child and Family Services. Whereas Canada has committed 10.2 million, and in the Ontario portion is 1.8 million. The Anishinaabe, Aski Nation, and Chiefs of Ontario have sourced other funds for participation in the review. and by consensus, the unaffiliated First Nations and other political territorial organizations have agreed to the population-based distribution for review of the 1965 welfare agreement that provides $335,771 to Six Nations. Whereas the plan for local and regional reviews have not been finalized for the political process, the political champions or representatives for Six Nations needs to be identified. Therefore, be it resolved that Six Nations accepts the $335,771 to be used for representation and review of the 1965 welfare agreement and political representatives to be identified or validate the representative is the chief or designate on the Chief's Committee on Social Services. Could I have a mover for that? Moved by Dean, second by Leslie. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing or seeing none, the motion has been carried. And comment or question from Audrey?
It's a question. Is this the time right now when we validate our representative or the chief or designate?
Arliss, when do you need that information?
The sooner the better, but I know that it's probably just in front of you today, so I know you probably will go back and think or want to identify who would be the representative. And I think it's coming up on the next political leadership meeting. So I'm not sure how soon we need to identify even a team back here to say, here's how we're going to involve or the conversations, because it does include Ontario Works, homemakers from health, child and family services.
Right, and that could be determined by the committee members, that the new committee members that will be involved with social.
Yes.
Right, and that's something that could be determined.
Or nation building too, right? Because it's a 65, which would be an agreement between,
Nation
I mean, that's a big discussion, right? Whether or not even First Nations want to be signatories to that agreement. Right now, they're not signatories to that agreement. And it's all in discussion, right? Do the First Nations still just want to be signatories to it? Or, I mean, observers, or it's all about us, but not including us? That makes sense? Or whether or not there's that push to be parties or signatories to that agreement.
Cynthia?
Just with your reference, could also, well, obviously there are sectoral areas, but then the overall broader is the whole governance, and that's a piece that I sit on. Now, I have extensive background in that 65 welfare agreement. So from the broader sector area, I would be willing to participate on that.
Thank you very much. So that could be still determined, that those representatives at this time. Okay, and we working
Yes.
with everyone in that regard. Okay, so that'll be good. So we'll get those ironed out and back to you. Thank you, Arliss.
Okay.
Amos?
Just a wordsmithing here. Just a question, is it the chief or designate on the Chiefs of Ontario Committee on Social Services? Is that what we're looking for?
Yes,
In the last sentence?
Chiefs of Ontario.
Just a wordsmithing, maybe we should insert that in the last therefore then? Just to make sure our record is straight. It just says the Chiefs Committee on Social Services. It could be any chief.
So we'd have to make amendment to that.
Yeah.
And be more specific to that Chiefs of Ontario. Okay, is that okay, Dean?
Will I make the amendment then?
Can we make the amendment, or can we go back to
The
mover and
mover,
seconder?
seconder, yeah.
Dean, is that okay? Okay, Leslie? Okay, let's revote then. All in favor of that change? Right? Okay. Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, that amendment has been carried. Brooke, do you have that?
Committee. Yeah.
Now moving on to the other added was the cannabis. Item number 4 on your in-camera political liaison agenda. The representatives are, because of the change, are not available. So it is up to this table to determine whether to proceed on having it still in the open or to defer it at this time. Or we could act, the third option would be also to, yeah, we could defer it to open till tomorrow night. Leslie? Elena? Sorry.
Yeah, I would agree to defer to tomorrow's general council open agenda.
Okay, so moved by Elena to defer it till the open tomorrow, the general council, seconded by Leslie. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried to defer that till tomorrow, general council. Okay. Moving on to scheduling.
Chair,
Yes?
is there any reason why we can't add number 5 from the end camera to open?
We would require another motion for that. Because we've added, through a motion, we've added the cannabis, which was deferred, Trevor and Arliss's presentation.
I'd move that, Chair.
To move recommendation number 5 from the Six Nations Police to the open. Moved by Cynthia. Second, okay. And so, and all in favor, oh, Helen, sorry.
No. I just wondered why we started putting these in camera, because we never used to. They would come here and we would meet them. So now we're doing two things. We're putting this in camera and approving it, then they're gonna come here and introduce us to them. Why did we start doing this and putting it in camera? We never used to.
Well, yes, once they get stuck in the, in camera and then they're moved to the, open, yes. Because they're scheduled with people to be present at certain times, because they would be much later in the day. So that becomes a problem. That always will become a problem. You had a comment, Carrie?
Yeah, isn't that like they're introduced to council when they pass their training and everything? And then they come in.
In this case, it's most likely, yeah, just almost a rubber stamp, right? Because they're already, I believe, they're already working. I think they're working already, I believe. So, yes, if you want to, in this case, do an exception, again, add it. They do not have to be present, I believe. No, so, this is something that we can do. We can do it right away. What we have is on the floor is to add that, adding these new police officers to the open. Was actually moved by Cynthia, seconded by Carrie. We could have a vote on that. All in favor of that change? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. So we'll look at the recommendation for public is for our community members. It's recommendation from Six Nations Police that the Six Nations of the Grand River elected council do hereby appoint Lucas Smith and Samuel Gowland as a Six Nations Police Constable or constables for the Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, and recommend that the Commission of the Ontario Provincial Police appoint Lucas Smith and Samuel Gowland under the terms set out in the Six Nations Policing Services Agreement. Could I have a mover? That moved by Audrey. Oh, sorry. Question by Audrey.
Shouldn't we be adding something once they complete their courses, because they got another 7 months of training? Kind of a little premature.
Yes.
The reason why this is here, that, they have been appointed and they have attended the academy and passed all the necessary, I guess, activities associated with it to become a police officer. That's why it's here. They would not, ask you to appoint if that was not already completed. Thank you.
So,
I'll make that recommendation.
moved by Melba, seconder. Second by Cynthia. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, that is carried. That recommendation has been carried. Moving on back into the open agenda. We are at scheduling.
You want to waive second reading on that last motion?
Oh, yes, we could waive second. We don't require second reading.
No?
No, we don't require. Okay, moving on to scheduling, which is number 8 on the open agenda. Recommendation 8.1, that Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council appoint a delegate to attend the Indigenous Leadership Development Institute regional in-person engagement sessions on March 5th, 2024 in the Chippewas of Rama, Ontario, along with Darren Mentor, Chief of Six Nations Police. Question, Helen.
What is Indigenous Leadership Development? I mean, what are they going to go to? Is it like training or something? And what is it? Does anybody know?
Yeah, usually, the Institute usually does a lot of consultation on behalf of the government. And this is pertaining to, my understanding is just that continued discussion on, the legislative aspects. So it is an engagement session. The Institute just runs, it's like a consulting group, they run the engagement.
Do we have someone on council that would be interested in attending? Leslie? Any other, we only need one delegate in this regard. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Leslie. So could I have a mover? Moved by Ellen. Oh, sorry, question?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to express a concern because it says the word engagement. That's the same as consultations, and that's why I wondered what, if we need to know what this is about, if she's going up there to engage. That's government's new word now for consultation, so what would we be consulting on? And does Six Nations agree that we should be consulting on this, whatever it is?
I'm sure that information, we can obtain some of that information from Darren and clarify that. And yeah, Nathan will follow up on that, on exactly what's involved. So we have a motion. We have a mover in that regard.
It's a discussion guide. There's 24 pages.
Okay.
That the report is what's going to be paid.
Okay. It's that report that's in that Dropbox. Can you check, Brooke? Audrey?
Age, shouldn't council be going through that report and doing our position on it before we send somebody out to engage? And they should be taking a typed report with them to basically, as their guide to read from or to make all those points? Because one person doesn't represent us all.
So in your kits, there's engaging on the proposed elements of the Federal First Nations Police Services legislation discussion guide, winter 2024, prepared by the Indigenous Leadership Development Institute on a project that is funded by Canada. So there's a 20-page report. My understanding usually, and I think it would be good probably to have Six Nations Police Services. They've done all of the work, or they usually do all of the work on our behalf. So whoever's going, maybe work with both Dale and Police Chief there and bring that information back to council in terms of the work that, as you're outlining, Audrey, just in terms of what is being said and what those speaking notes are. But they did provide the engagement report in the kits, and there is an agenda.
So I just emailed the discussion guide, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question now is to move forward on that motion. Yes, but we need a mover. Do we have a mover in that regard? No. Melba, moved by Melba. A seconder. Second by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing or seeing none, motion is carried. But there will be a follow-up on that. Recommendation 8.2, that Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council approve Chief Sherry Lynn Hill to attend the First Nations Wellness Conference to provide opening remarks on March 19th, 2024, taking place at the Toronto Metro Convention Center. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Audrey. Question by Cynthia.
Say, I forget what it was. That is on March 19th and 20th?
That's the, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the mayors are meeting. And then also did Taylor say, is it the 20th? And they put that in there that there's a special ATR meeting. So on the 19th, I don't know if I don't know her exact schedule, but to me it's the priority would be this meeting with those neighboring political representatives on the 19th.
Yeah, she'll be here in the evening.
Okay.
I think she'll be able to do both.
If you think, but it's not, then I would say this has to take priority the evening. Like, who knows? I don't know, but that would take the priority.
Yeah, just my understanding of her schedule right now is she needs the motion to do the opening remarks at the health forum, and then she was leaving to come back here.
Okay, and I'm just saying, you think, but if it turns out, like, I don't know what time, if it seems it's gonna perhaps put her in a position where she can't get back in time, like, forget that other thing and get to this meeting with the political representatives of the surrounding, but otherwise it's not a problem, obviously. We just have to prioritize.
Go ahead, Amos.
Isn't that meeting at like around 5:30 with the
Yeah,
mayors?
5 to
Yeah, it's
8.
late afternoon. And I'm sure the conference is going to start around 9, so I plan on doing the same thing as driving back for that meeting with the mayors. or their officials.
Yeah, I can't see, because there's such a time gap in between that I think it's possible for the chief to make those two functions. So I have a mover, Audrey. I need a seconder. Second by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Comments, Audrey?
Yeah, if it becomes too much for the chief to do, we have two counselors who will be there on the 19th and 20th to the health. So maybe they could do the opening or presentation, whatever they're doing. Opening remarks again.
Yeah, I think these two dates could be reviewed with the chief's office. And of course, she could have an alternate in place, as you're saying, from the committees or a representative that's already going to be there. So I think it's possible that either or could happen. So I think it's doable on that day. Yeah. Amos?
I'm presenting a workshop there too, so I think I'll be there. I'll be in that capacity, but I can put my chief's hat on and speak if I have to. Put my Gustola on. No, just kidding.
Yeah, thank you, Amos. Yes, Elba?
Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem because the only thing she's doing is doing a welcoming right in the morning at 9 o'clock. There are a couple others that are doing welcoming too, but shouldn't be a problem, her getting back. Thank you.
Moving on to recommendation number 8.3, that in working through the scheduling, that Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council approves Chief Sherry Lynn Hill, one counselor from Unity Building Committee and one counselor from the External Government Relations Committee to attend a meeting with Premier Doug Ford at Queen's Park on March 21st, 2024. I note that the office had asked me to, being part of the External Government Relations, to also attend. So we're looking if that is okay with this panel. Okay. Also, we're looking for one counselor from Unity Building Committee.
I'm not,
Oh, sorry, Cynthia.
I don't think we've even formalized anything yet.
No.
Aren't we supposed to look at all this stuff on Wednesday? And I mean, the way we're tentatively slotted, but it's not been formalized and come to a final where we're on agreement. But I think I'm on that external too, so I'd also be available.
Okay.
I don't know, and I can't remember who's on that Unity or, I can't recall.
I think it's
but
the
do
same
know we have
committee.
to
I think it's the
formalize.
same group.
Oh, is it? Okay, so that's.
So there you go. We've,
You and I.
if that's okay. Yes, I need a mover to that effect. Moved by Hazel, seconder. Second by Carrie. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, the motion is carried. Go ahead, Helen.
I guess we're gonna get information probably before this happens as to what she's meeting with him for. Wouldn't council have to come up with issues that we want discussed? Chris?
Thank you, Councillor. This will be fully explained in the in-camera meeting. There's been a lot of conversations with the provincial government, with Minister Rickford and so on, and it's sort of the next step in that. So I think it'll be a lot clearer after the next meeting.
Thank you, Christopher. Now going on to the open the councillor reports. Are there any reports from councillors at this time? Helen?
We met with Lands Resource last Friday. Counselor Amos was there and Cynthia and Greg to talk about different issues. I'm going, they were talking about, there was all different things. And it was really good to sit there and listen to all the stuff. So just want to let everybody know we did attend that meeting. There is an issue coming out of there that I want to discuss, but I'm not discussing it until later.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing there are no further counselor reports, I'm going to be moving. Oh, we're going to be moving on to the community safety. And there are no issues presently with community safety at this time. And also we'll be moving on to the chief's office updates. And that would be Christopher and yeah. And there, at this time, there are no chief office updates in the open meeting. So moving. Go ahead, Melba.
Yeah, I'm just questioning why there is not. This will happen probably over time, that the chief will be somewhere else, and I'm sure she has her staff, so I'm not sure who's available, because this has happened before. I think it was a couple of weeks ago where the chief was not present, but no doubt she has her report ready. Is that available today? Because that's very important for us as well as the community.
Thank you, Melba. I do have Amos, and then I do have Christopher in to do some review of the chief's office updates for the open.
What's the parameters about community safety? What is that in the agenda? What is that supposed to be? It's my first time seeing that.
Nathan, can you address?
Infrastructure? Is it health safety? What kind of safety is it?
Back in the 58th council, there was a number of community concerns coming forward. So there was a motion just to make community safety a standing item on all agendas. No.
Okay, moving on to the chief's office updates. Christopher?
Thank you, Councillor. As Council knows, Chief Sherilyn Hill is unable to attend today because she is down in Toronto at a Chiefs of Ontario Leadership Advocacy Strategy meeting session. They're going to have a chance to speak with the Premier, as well as some other ministers, including Minister Rickford, and a full report will be provided on how that goes. So that's happening today. And so on the chief's behalf, I'm just going to read a few very brief updates on some political events that have happened in the last couple of weeks. First of all, Chief Hill attended a provincial health funding announcement. This took place on February 15th in Brantford. The announcement was made by MPP Robin Martin, who is the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones. And Parliamentary Assistant Martin announced $3.8 million in new funding in the Brantford region for primary health connections. So the Six Nations Family Health Team is one of the beneficiaries of this announcement, and they are receiving $1.8 million, which is intended to help over 3,400 patients in the community to be connected to a primary health team. So this is very good news. This is additional funding that will benefit the Six Nations community and help provide primary health care connections to patients in the community. Chief Hill expressed her appreciation to the Six Nations Family Health Team for working with the province to make this possible. On February 20th, there was another announcement. This was a small business training funding announcement. Chief Sherilyn welcomed Member of Parliament Brian May, who is Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Small Business and the Minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario and other Visitors to the territory were there as well. This announcement took place right across the street at Great. MP May announced almost $1 million in project funding for the Two Rivers Community Development Center to support skills training and youth entrepreneurship programming in the Six Nations and Mississauga's communities. So another bit of good news there. The Chief's Office staff attended a virtual meeting of the governance table of the Jay Treaty Border Alliance meeting. This took place on February 16th. Officials with the Canadian government have been holding consultations with First Nations on border mobility issues and are producing a What We Heard report. And this report is intended to lead to draft legislation. So that's an ongoing process. And the Jay Treaty Border Alliance is working to keep First Nation communities that are participating informed of this.
Go ahead. We have one question for you, Christopher. Cynthia?
Just an observation for this Border Alliance. It was a virtual, and you said the chief's office. Did that include our, I think it's manager of lands membership? Because she's been, as I understand, a past attendee at all of these.
I believe she was a participant in that meeting.
Was she?
Yeah.
Good.
I'd have to double check,
double
but
check
I think she was.
It just in case she wasn't, hopefully she was, if we can make sure that these technical people that are part of the process are for sure
Yeah,
invited.
and she
part
has
of it.
been on a regular basis.
Okay,
So,
just want to check.
yep.
So is that the Jay Treaty Border Alliance, the one that you were at?
Yep.
I have a concern with that. Because Chief Hill said she and Linda Parker would be attending. Lori Miller's been sitting there for like 4 years and she deals with a lot of the issues with the border crossing, which is Jay Treaty is all about. I've been sitting there for like 10 years, off and on. I would have went had I known that Chief Hill couldn't go. Lori would have went had she known Chief Hill couldn't go. This was a high-level committee meeting in Ottawa. The chiefs and the ministers are meeting. It's very historic because the Jay Treaty is working on changing legislation as well as getting Canada to honor the Jay Treaty. That's why there's ministers sitting at the table. I don't think it looks good on Six Nations part, and I mean, no disrespect to Chris, I think he does a wonderful job. But I don't think it looks good for Six Nations to send a political advisor to a high-level committee meeting like this that was taking place.
If I can just provide some extra information, there were no ministers at this meeting.
It wasn't it the high-level committee that they meet with in Ottawa, though?
It was the governance table, I believe.
Yeah.
But this was a meeting with officials from Crown Indigenous Relations to update the table. There are, I believe, going to be ministers at a future meeting in April.
But even so, Chris, there's 12 councillors sitting here. There's no need to send a political advisor to any meeting like that because you have 12 councillors. You know what I'm saying? 1 or 2 councillors could have went. So it just doesn't look good on Six Nations to be sending a political advisor to meetings like this, whether it had ministers or Indigenous relations or whoever was there, when we have 12 councillors sitting here. That's all I'm saying. So we need to start looking at that. I know there's a pattern and it comes from the last council, but we don't want that pattern here to this council. So we need to look at that. That's all I'm saying.
Cynthia?
While we're on that, Chris, on this meeting, I'm just, was Trevor Bomberry part of that?
I think Trevor was on the call as well.
Good. It's just,
Yeah.
just the observation and process that I'm most accustomed to is these types of meetings. You always have a political representative and it's recognized due to the terms of reference of the particular committee. Often it's a chief's committee, so we would have the chief or a designate. But generally, we would also have what we call the technical people. And in this particular case, due to our makeup, we would have, as was mentioned, the Lori, the Trevor, and you're the generalist, like those are sectoral areas, Chris? I would see that fine, just depending at the meeting, if they can accommodate all those bodies. That's all. If it's a virtual, it's usually not an issue.
Yeah.
That's just a general observation.
Go ahead, Christopher.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. I can also provide some more thoughts on this in the next meeting as well. But did also want to note that it was indicated that the United States has sent signals that they're developing legislation to eliminate the blood quantum requirement. So I wanted to mention that because that came up in the meeting too. In any event, this is obviously ongoing work, and there will be further meetings and further developments. On February 22nd, Chief Hill, this was also indicated earlier when Mike was here, Chief Hill joined Mayor Amy Martin of Norfolk County and Mayor Shelley-Ann Bentley of Haldeman County for a post-Roma meeting with the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Infrastructure. This would be MPP Amarjot Sandhu, and he is the parliamentary assistant to Minister Kinga Surma, whom we met at AMO last summer and at AMO the summer before that. The chief and the two mayors presented the Nanticoke Water Treatment Plant Transmission Project, again, which would, if built, run water up to the southern border of Six Nations. This is a project that has been struggling to get headway with the government to seek that funding. And in theory, such a project, if funded, could help provide a consistent water supply to as many as 800 homes in the southern part of the riding or the territory. But the chief's office is going to go back to Mike on this and ask him to reassess what the best approach is on this, given that the Ministry of Infrastructure has so far not been able to find a way to provide the funds for this project. And finally, there was a report from some members of the community that attempting to cross the Peace Bridge, they had been informed that cash was no longer being accepted. So the chief's office inquired about this, and Transport Canada has been looking into it. And we have recently gotten a letter back from officials at Transport Canada saying that they're still looking into this, that they believe that no official policy change has been made, but they're going to continue to investigate and report back to us. So again, this is also an unfolding file, but what we're seeking to do is to confirm that cash can indeed be accepted. And if there's a particular reason why cash was not accepted, we would like to know what that reason was and to make sure that that is addressed. So those are the updates for the open meeting right now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Is there any questions or further comments? Okay, I'd like to accept the chief's report as information. Could I have a mover in that regard? Moved by Leslie, seconder by Hazel. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Comment or question, Audrey?
Yeah, I think it's something that we have to start looking at and have some clear procedures around. Chiefs in the past have given us their report written by themselves, and we received them, the previous chief, like every Sunday night. The meetings that were attended, the ministers spoken to, we were always kept in the loop, and counselors were always asked to attend. If it was education, then it's the education person. If it's infrastructure, so be it. So those are the types of things that I'd like to see put processes in, and to have, I agree with what Cynthia's saying, the right people for the right meeting at the right time needs to be looked at. And also the reporting. It's very important that we see reports, and the people who write those reports, I think, need to put their names on them. And that's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, thank you for that, Audrey. Now we're just gonna be moving on to the, we needed a motion to adjourn. And I'd like to put that to the floor. It's, Carrie, or do you have a comment?
Yeah, I got a comment. Are we going to waive second reading on item recommendation 8.2? Because normally, if you don't waive second reading, nothing gets done, or nothing's supposed to be getting done on each motion until you do the second reading the following meeting. And so that's the reason why 8.2 is because it's March 5th is the date that Leslie is going to Rama. And the reason why I asked on item 5 for the police, so basically nothing is going to be done as far as appoint to the commissioner of Ontario OP or the OPP. So nothing will be done until then. Like no action will be taken until the second reading is done, right? Unless you waive second reading.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the rule around second reading is if you needed action prior to the next meeting date, you waive second reading. But it's implied when you move the minutes at the subsequent meeting that all second reading is waived. That's the rule. So for the purposes of the scheduling, yes, we should waive second reading because our next meeting date will fall after that and we'll have to action that prior to. But we can wait on the police motion because when you pass your minutes at your next political liaison, that automatically waives second reading. Yeah.
So the recommendation 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 should have second reading. We can do that now. Okay. And do I have a mover in that respect? Cynthia, seconded by Melba, and Melby. And so those in recommendation 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3, motion that's been moved by Cynthia, seconded by Melba. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. That covers 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. Okay, moving on to item number 12, the motion to adjourn. Yes. Melvin?
Question right now related to report writing. What is the process right now, Chris, between you and the chief in regards to your reading what information you have from the chief? I'm just wondering. Audrey has brought that up, and that's interesting. What is the process? How you and her manage that?
Well, the three of us in the chief's office work with the chief to figure out what is the most effective or efficient way to produce reports or updates. And usually when it comes to a chief's update in council, that's something that the chief is involved with. For the chief's, well, she's involved with everything, but normally I think, as Councillor Audrey was saying, the chief would deliver that report herself. For the chief's office updates that are staff updates, it's usually a team effort. So it's usually multiple people in the office. Usually, so for example, if I attend a meeting, I'll do up some preliminary notes, but then usually Claire and Linda will have a chance to add some insights of their own and vice versa. So it's usually a team effort. And when I produce a report, it'll get approved by either the chief or the chief of staff. So there's usually sort of multiple people involved in that. And it kind of depends on who was in the meeting at the time or who is the sort of principal witness of the event being reported on, that kind of thing.
Okay, I anticipate that's, I guess, how our teams will work also, because at times it may be all the team that's attending with a portfolio system, as well as maybe two at a time. I'm not sure. Yeah, I imagine we would certainly consult with one another because we may have a different understanding of what so-and-so said or what was happening at the time. Okay, I just thought I'd clarify that. Yeah, because I think we'll be doing that quite often with assistance from each other and working together. Thanks.
Right. And we do tend to have conversations beforehand about what items council should be updated on. You know, somebody might say, oh, hey, we should give council an update on issue X because, you know, there've been more developments and that kind of thing. And then different people will contribute different parts of that report. So it's very much a team effort.
And yeah, to that point too, as well as some of these issues that come up, she wants to get out to the community in a timely fashion rather than have them delayed. And then, of course, she travels a lot. There's a lot of information that comes through her office that has to be disseminated and actioned upon, and that she does that. And sometimes she gets taken away from, like, such as today, and that she will allow Christopher to do her update if she's not here. Because again, it's a timely thing. You want the information out to the community as soon as possible, as prudently.
Exactly. And also I would note, I forgot to mention, but you can find the written version of this in the Dropbox folder for both the open and in-camera sessions.
Yeah, so any further comments, Elena?
Move to adjourn. Dan.
Yeah. Okay. Moved by Elena. We need a seconder. Second. And Ava, second by Amos. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing or seeing none, the motion is carried. Well, thank you very much, community, for this meeting this morning. It was quite lengthy, but we did add some in-camera items so that you can be well informed. So thanks again and have a very good day. And don't forget the Little NHL in March 10th to the 15th in Markham. It's always a fun time, and a lot of our young relatives play, so it's always good to get out. Thank you, and have a good day.